Hi students, so this video is about writing your first essay for English 101, writing WP1. So as you know, the first draft is due next week. Please check the exact dates on your syllabus. And 1 week, and so after you do the first draft just gets a score of pass or fail. And then Professor King will give you feedback about that draft. Then you will revise the draft and change it. And then the final draft will get a grade, like an A, B, C, D grade. So your first draft does not have to be perfect, but it has to be finished. So a lot of people experience what we call writer's block, where something blocks them from writing. Something stops them. It's hard to get started. We procrastinate, which means we put things off. We say, I'll do it tomorrow. We leave it to the last minute. So that's a very normal feeling that many people have. It's easy to feel stressed by other parts of our life or other responsibility. It's easy to feel distracted. So this video on YouTube, which you'll be able to link in the presentation, has a lot of great suggestions for what to do if you feel blocked. We talked about some of the ideas, which is like just write a part at a time and take a break in between. Set a timer for 5 minutes and just write as much as you can. Even if it's not good, you can always go back and change it. Take a short break, especially to do something physical like a walk or physical exercise is often a good way to overcome some of those blocks. So I encourage you to start writing so that you have enough time to really work on your essay. So how is your essay going to look? Overall, your essay is going to have the same narrative arc that we talked about with other pieces of writing in the class that we sort of analyzed for the dolphins article, or that that you maybe have already started thinking about how to structure your narrative essay so that it has some background information, before anything happens, explaining who and where, then having some incidents, some things that happen, and several things that happen before we get to the climax, the most important part or the turning point, a couple more things that happen, a final event, and then sort of a conclusion. So along with this overall structure, you are going to need an introduction paragraph that's specific for this essay. So the introduction needs to have a definition of joy, pleasure, or delight. Whichever one you are writing about, you need to put a definition there. Your introduction also needs to have a thesis. The thesis is a one-sentence main idea. The main idea shows what did you learn, or what did you get out of this whole experience that happened to you. Okay? You'll also have, which is connected to this part of the narrative arc, you will have a conclusion. Where the thesis is just one sentence about what you learned, the conclusion is a longer paragraph where you expand about what you learned and really reflect on it and reflect about how it has changed you or changed your life. So let's look at some of these, starting with the introduction. So this is an example of an introduction with a thesis that is probably from a first draft. It needs some work, okay? So I'll read it. My family and I took a vacation every year when I was growing up. Our go-to places were usually beaches or mountain areas because we live on flat ground land. There was one vacation that I will never forget because I learned a very important skill of swimming. Because of this experience, I learned to be independent and learned to love memories while they lasted. Okay, so we can imagine what this essay will be about, right? It's going to be about her vacation and how she learned to swim. Maybe she had a hard time swimming or something scary or something like that, but she was independent. She figured it out by herself, okay? So when we look at what we need, a definition of joy, pleasure, or delight, and a thesis. So let's look at the thesis first. She has a thesis, okay? She tells us what she learned, and we know what the essay is going to be about. But does she have this definition of joy, pleasure, or delight? No, there is no joy, pleasure, or delight in this whole paragraph. Okay, so this person got very focused on writing a story, telling a story about their life, but they forgot the important instruction, the key instruction from Dr. King. It needs to relate to joy, pleasure, or delight. Okay, so this one will have to be rewritten and have to be improved. So in the first draft, Dr. King is going to give a complete grade, the 1 point for this, because the person finished it, they did it, they got it done. They had the thesis, they tried, okay? But for the final draft, it's not going to work. It's not going to be a passing final draft. So let's look at how the person revised it and made it better. Okay, they said, my family and I took a vacation when we were growing up. Our go-to places, this was all the same. Okay, because of this particular trip, I learned the delight of overcoming my fear of swimming and the rewarding feeling that follows after facing a challenge or conquering something that once caused anxiety or hesitation. It's the satisfaction and pride in personal growth, turning what was once a source of fear into a cherished positive memory. Yes, so now we still know what this is about. It's about how she learned to swim, but now she got that key piece in there of delight. She is telling us what delight is. Delight is overcoming your fear and how good you feel after you did something difficult, okay? So this is much improved. We still know what the main idea is, but we know what delight means, and we know what it means to the writer. Okay, let's look at another example. Here's another example from the first draft that needs work. The student writes, when I was in senior year of high school, it was a great time, but also a not great time. I had a group of friends like I had always wanted, and we had some amazing memories. But I also almost lost myself and my parents. The hardest thing about growing up is growing apart from the things or people you love. Because of this, I learned how to let go. Okay? So once again, we're going back to that checklist. We need the definition of joy, pleasure, or delight, and one sentence with the main idea. So again, she has that sentence of the main idea about growing up and letting go, but there is nothing about joy, pleasure, or delight. Can we say it's a great time is about joy, pleasure, or delight? I would say no, because it doesn't use one of those words. It doesn't give a definition. What is a great time, right? Like a great time, she doesn't tell us what it really means to her, okay? So once again, this person really focused on the story they were telling, not on the requirements of the assignment, okay? Here we go with the revision, okay? Everyone has a different view on what pleasure is to them. But pleasure to me is how one day I found pleasure in being out 24/7 and hanging out with friends. And now that I left all that behind, I find pleasure in school and working to better myself in the future. I learned that pleasure from taking time and doing the right thing and to succeed is more important. And that is the path I want to follow. Okay? Good job to the student. But that's, what happened for the student is they really had to change almost everything, right, in their introduction and their thesis. They still told us, their main point. They learned that pleasure is from working hard, not just from hanging out or being out all the time, okay? So they really did provide that definition. Everyone has a different view, but to me, what it means is something that changes for myself and what's important to me and in my life, following my own values or my own priorities. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea about what's some good ways and some not so good ways to write the introduction. What about the conclusion? Right? In the thesis, we're just saying one main point, but in the conclusion, we're trying to expand on what we know. So this is the same from the girl with her senior year, and I'm providing the whole essay for you in a different link. Okay? So this is her conclusion, which needs work. So she says, in conclusion, never put your priorities to the side. Always hustle for what you want in life. Always think about your future, because it will pay off in the long run. Do what your heart desires and follow your dreams. Never put your parents to the side for friends that don't have good intentions, especially those who push you to do things that won't bring nothing good for you in life. Okay? So in this conclusion, she sort of really focused on kind of like giving advice and kind of saying what she learned, right? So this is kind of like what you would tell your friend. Make sure you always do this. This is kind of like advice. Notice here there's nothing about pleasure. There's nothing about joy. While she's giving advice to someone else, she's not really reflecting on herself and what she learned or how she grew. Okay? So here's the conclusion when we revised it. Making changes in my priorities is a life lesson that I will keep forever. I will look back in the future and think maybe the things I find pleasure in right now may change at another point in my life. Okay, now we got that pleasure in there. In college, I know how to make better choices because high school was a big life lesson I had to go through to realize I now find pleasure in things I would have never found pleasure in. I will continue to work hard for things I want later. Another goal I have in life for me is to look after my parents after they've done so much for me and my siblings. I now find pleasure in chasing my dreams and goals, going to work and working extra hours when the opportunity is present, and most importantly, my family and college. So we see that here in this revised conclusion, she talked more about how her ideas of pleasure have changed, and maybe in the future they're even going to change again. So this was much more reflective and a better essay. So of course it's a little hard to understand this exactly without looking at the whole essay. So here I have her first draft and then her final draft, which is neither one is perfect, right? But hopefully it gives you some ideas about how the essay looks. So I think it will be a great idea for you guys to start writing. I would like you to read these two before our next class so that we can discuss them in class, and I will also give you advice. Another part of your homework is that by next Wednesday, you need to share with me your draft of the essay. You can share it as a Google Doc link, or you can email it to me so that I can have a look at it before it's due and give you some feedback. So thank you very much and see you soon.